Have you ever tried to wrap your head around something that's, by definition, unknowable? I mean, really think about it. It's a huge question, and it's right at the heart of this incredible ancient text, Ambigua 10. The whole thing basically asks, look, if a divine being is totally beyond our understanding, how can we even begin to talk about it? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. All right, so how do we even begin to tackle a question that massive? Well, the author lays out what he calls a ladder of contemplation. And that's basically going to be our roadmap here. We're going to start at the very bottom, on the first rung, with a single, really powerful symbol. And then we'll climb our way up, step by step, to see how it all leads to this incredible new way of seeing reality. So where does a thinker even begin with an argument this big? You might expect some really abstract, complicated logic, right? But nope, our author starts with something surprisingly concrete, a really powerful story from the Bible, the Transfiguration. This one single event is treated like the key that can unlock this whole philosophical puzzle. Okay, so the text here is a little dense, but the key takeaway is all about how the author frames this event. See, the Transfiguration isn't just presented as some miracle. It's seen as a profound symbol. It's the ultimate example of how something infinite, something divine, can actually communicate itself inside our finite human world. And here's the absolute killer phrase from the text. He became a type and symbol of himself. Just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just some random thing that happened. It was a deliberate act of communication. It's the author's way of showing how something totally transcendent can be made knowable, how it can be presented in a form our minds can actually start to get a handle on. And this brings us right to the heart of the whole puzzle. I mean, how can something you can see and hear, a person on a mountain, be a symbol for something that's supposed to be beyond all human thought, beyond all language? It feels like a total contradiction, right? And that is the exact problem the rest of this text is trying to solve. So, how does the author crack this nut? The answer, he says, lies in two different but totally complementary paths to knowledge. And what's really brilliant is that both of these paths are symbolized right there in the details of the Transfiguration story itself. Let's take a closer look. Okay, and this is where the text gets just brilliant. It points us to two key symbols in the story. First, you have the shining face. So bright it's described as overcoming the human senses. You can't really look at it. And second, you have the luminous garments, which, were clearly visible. According to the author, each one of these details represents a completely different way of knowing. So this leads us to two really powerful ways of thinking. The shining face, the thing you can't really grasp, that symbolizes what's called negative theology. It's all about understanding God by saying what he is not. He's not finite, he's not created, he's not limited in any way. It's about his complete and utter transcendence. Then you've got the bright garments, the things you can see. They symbolize affirmative theology, understanding God through what he is and what he's done, specifically as the creator, whose work we can see all around us. Okay, so let's follow that second path for a bit, the affirmative one. If those bright garments symbolize knowing God through creation, then what exactly can we learn just by looking at the world? If all of nature is a symbol, what is it pointing to? Well, according to our text, the great thinkers of the past didn't just sit around and speculate about a creator. No, they learned by carefully observing the world around them. It was like they were reading the book of nature, and in that book, they found some pretty profound clues. So what did they see when they read this book of nature? Well, they saw a world that seemed perfectly created. They saw predictable, orderly cycles. The stars, the seasons, the rhythm of day and night. To them, this incredibly intricate, harmonious order just couldn't be random. It had to be the work of an intelligent creator. And not just a creator, but a provider, one who sustains everything. So in this way of thinking, the entire universe becomes a kind of guide. Every star, every season, every single living thing becomes a signpost, pointing our minds away from the created thing itself and towards its ultimate source. Okay, we're at the final rung of our ladder now, and the argument is about to take a big turn. We're moving from observing nature into the world of pure logic. See, the author isn't just saying the universe looks like it was designed. He's about to build a stone-cold, rational case for why the universe must have had a beginning. And the entire logical argument hinges on this one question. But, and this is super important, we have to understand what the author means by motion. It's not just, a planet flying through space. For this argument, motion means any kind of change whatsoever. A seed growing into a tree, a leaf decaying, something coming into existence. All of that is motion. The core idea, which you can see laid out here in the text, is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. It's this: any motion, any change has to have a cause. Things don't just change for no reason at all. Every single change is kicked off by something else, and it's moving toward some kind of goal or final state. Now, if every effect has a cause, you can start tracing that chain of causes backwards, right? But you can't trace it back forever. Think about it like a line of dominoes that goes on for infinity. It just doesn't work. The first domino could never fall. Logically, you have to arrive at a first cause. And that first cause is what philosophers call the prime mover, the one thing that starts all the motion but isn't itself moved by anything else. It is the uncaused cause. So let's break down the logic here. It's a really tight 4-step argument. Step 1, you observe that everything in the world is in motion. It's changing. Step 2, no motion can happen without a cause. Step 3, that cause is the beginning of the motion. And that leads you to the final step, the unavoidable conclusion. Nothing that is in motion can be without a beginning. It just can't have existed forever. And check this out. This logic doesn't just apply to physical motion. The author takes it a step further and applies it to the most basic categories of reality itself. Things like substance, which is just a fancy way of asking, what is this thing? Or quantity, how much of it is there? Even these super fundamental ideas are subject to change. And so, the author argues, they too must have had a beginning. Then the argument pulls in our concepts of space and time themselves. And the point here is actually really clever. You can't think of a where without also thinking of a when, right? To exist in a specific place, you have to exist at a specific time. The two are totally, completely locked together. And the implication of that is, well, it's profound. If something exists in time, it cannot, by definition, be timeless. It's part of the flow of time, so it must have had a starting point. Following this logic, the only thing that could possibly be eternal is something that exists completely outside of our framework of time and space. So, to put a bow on this whole section, it doesn't matter if you're talking about motion or what something is or how much of it there is. The logical conclusion is always the same. Anything that's part of our observable, created world is, by its very nature, finite. And if it's finite, it must have had a beginning. Period. And this brings our whole journey right back to where we started. We began with the visible world, with symbols and nature. We used observation and then logic to climb that ladder of contemplation. And where did it lead us? It led us to the idea that our logical, finite, caused world points to an origin that is, well, beyond our logic, that is infinite, and that is itself uncaused. Which leaves us with one final and kind of mind-bending question. We use the ladder of our own reason to get to this point, but the very top of that ladder seems to be pointing to a reality that our reason can't fully grasp. So, what does that say about the limits of our own understanding? What does it even mean if the ultimate destination of logic is something that is itself beyond logic?